So, questions? What we do is we run this along through the farmland. Every now and again we put an access chamber in the ground, about 600 mil by 450 by 450. And we put something called a splice bullet in there, which is basically a big plastic enclosure that allows us to link the fibres together. And then what we do is we run smaller pipes. That's a 7 mil duct. We run those from the access chamber to the house. So you bury them, and you can see you just drill a hole through the wall, push it in the same way you would a satellite cable. You know, those of you who've had a SAT TV coax put in, you'll see that is actually smaller than that. So, you know, bend it, put it through the wall. Once you get inside the wall, we have a little fibre terminating unit that sits on the wall. You blow the fibre. So what happens is after we put that duct in, we then blow a fibre through. And this is the fibre we would blow through to the house. That's actually 4 fibres inside that. And we can blow that up to about 1 kilometre through that tube. So having put the tube into your home and got the thing in, we simply go down to the access chamber, use compressed air to blow that through. It pops out in the house. We splice it onto a couple of connectors. And then we just plug a box on top of that, which then has 2 telephone ports, 4 10100 1 gig Ethernet ports, and it's got an 802.11n Wi-Fi access point. So that will be the standard installation we put in. And underneath that, there'll be another little box, which is an uninterruptible power supply. And what that will do is it plugs into the mains, and it's got a battery in it. And basically, if the mains fails for the house, your network link will be kept up for probably about 2.5 hours. I mean, we're required to do it for an hour, but you'll get a lot longer than that, which means you can still do 999 services and all that sort of thing in the event of a mains failure. That means you don't really need to have your landline. It saves you £14.60, so it pulls the cost down to you a lot. We will be putting some pictures up on the web, I think, Chris. We will have some pictures up shortly, won't we? We've shown the power supply and all that sort of thing, so you'll be able to get a good idea what it looks like. We can have any colour we like. Orange is quite a popular one. The only thing is, if you've got more than one tube on a route, you want to have different colour coding on each tube so that you know which one it is, because they're not numbered or anything. So normally, I mean, like, you know, with these smaller capacity ducts, you see there's a rainbow of colours in there. There is a standard colour sequence that's adopted by fibre companies. You know, so colour, this colour's 1, this colour's 2, and it's, you know, it's a standard sort of rainbow. So I think to some extent there is some flexibility, but not total. But I would have said that, you know, it's very different from gas or water or anything else. It's smaller capacity. What we would also do is normally put tape just above it, saying, you know, network cable below this. And after people have chopped through it, they lift it up and look at it. So, oh, look, we've just chopped through a network cable. So, it's very rare. I mean, the only ducts that are really safe is, we were talking about the fibre to Manchester. It's through a company that's actually laid it across the high pressure gas line. So when they put the north-south gas in, they did that. And it's one of the ones that very rarely ever gets broken, because you don't tend to put JCBs through the main North Sea gas feed to London. Or if you do it once, and there's a big plume of flame in the air to tell you where it's happened. So they only ever do it once, but it's well buried. What we're doing is, as part of the establishment of Barn, we're doing something that's called applying for code powers. And what code powers is what telecom companies like BT and Virgin have. And what that turns you into is something called a statutory undertaking, which gives us the right to dig under roads, put cabinets on the verges of the highways, and make a general nuisance of ourselves all over the place. We won't invoke that very much. It does give us all sorts of powers, but because we are a community company, we're not going to get up the noses of all our customers anyway. That's not our business. So we'll behave responsibly. But it does mean we do have the power to advise the council we're going down a road, we're going to dig it. What they can ask us to do is coordinate that with other activities that are going on, but effectively we have a legal power that allows us to do it. So I mean, that's the way we will be doing it. No, what we're doing is, we're very conscious of the fact that the way the internet is going, there's a lot of new applications, new things that are going to happen, which are going to be very, very heavy bandwidth, you know, users. So what we're doing is we're leasing private dark fibre from here to Telecity in Manchester. And then we're linking into something called Edge IX, which is in the United Kingdom, there are 2 peering centres where all the ISP and telecoms companies come together. Links in London and Edge IX in Manchester. So we link in there, and what that allows us to do is have multiple 10 gigabit pipes down to Manchester, and it means we can then pass traffic between all the companies that are content providers. So for instance, the BBC is looking to do a whole series of trials with high definition video delivered over to the internet for the Olympics. They're talking to us to see whether Barn would be a good candidate. And one of the things we can do is put a 10 gig pipe in separately for them. So, we see lots of these content type networks delivering vast amounts of data into us. And we don't pay for that by the usage, we pay for it as a static thing.
So you're not dependent on one provider.
Correct.
You can shop around.
Correct. Yeah, we're going to the wholesale market, the Covent Garden of broadband. Initially, it'll probably be Global Crossing. Level 3 will be providing us with internet transit, but we'll be peering with, Manchester, for instance, Google Global Cache is there, so all the Google stuff will go down the private circuit, not over the paying bit. The BBC's there, Janet for Education, which is the county council, that sort of thing. Facebook, YouTube, all those sorts of organisations, the BBC, Siemens, all the broadcast companies, and there'll be more and more of that. So blockbusters for video on demand. It won't come across our internet pipe. We'll have a private pipe to them at Manchester. So you'll be able to sit there and say, I want to watch this film. You can download an entire DVD in 30 seconds on the line speeds we've got. And start watching it after half a second. So pay-per-view. There's a big movement now that all the TV channels are going to be made available over the internet, so you'll be able to receive all of those. BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, Sky, Virgin, they're all beginning to make content available, and they will make available pay-per-view premium channels. So it's something called UView, is a set of standards that are coming on stream from about Easter onwards. And that's where the big growth is going to be, the exciting stuff. It's not all just about eBay and Facebook. I don't really envisage it being an issue for us. Firstly, because where we are out in the rural areas on farmland, the sort of people who are thinking in terms of copper aren't going to be thinking about farmland. Secondly, it isn't copper, it's fibre. There is zero resale value to that. If they ripped it out, it's worth nothing to them. The ironic thing is that the old style copper is very valuable. It's worth thousands of pounds a tonne. Fibre is actually made out of sand. It's just superheated sand. It's cheap as chips. From that point of view, yeah, it's reasonably accessible. If you dug down, but they'd only do it once and realise that it's of no value and they wouldn't do it again. First of all, we built the network in a way that says each of the village nodes has 2 routes in that come 2 separate ways. So if somebody cuts a fibre, it won't take the whole network down. All the village nodes will continue to work. It's only going to be the houses on the wrong side of that cut on that particular trunk. They're the only ones that are going to be affected. How do we fix it? It's very easy. What we said before is that's what it is with that inside it. What we have is we have manhole chambers about every 300 to 700 metres. And in each of those, what happens is that comes in, we have a 20-metre coil of that looped up, and we go out the other side. So if we get a break somewhere, we dig to the break, we can pull in the 20 metres from either side, we can repair this, because that's just a bit of tube, compression couplers on either side, do a fresh splice, and we're up and away. And what I said before about training people in the community up with the skills, part of the maintenance contract we'll put together with the community is we will pay retainers to the people who've got the skills, who between them will then make sure that we have cover. Now, we don't need 24-hour cover. You're not going out in the field at 2 o'clock in the morning to fix a fibre. I'm sorry. It's going to be next working day or daylight hours, which aren't pretty short at this time of year, but you know what I mean. And it's the same as BT. If you get a break in a phone line, they're not going to fix it till the next day. So what we will do is we will have the equipment available, we have the materials, and we'll have some people on standby, and they will go and fix it. And a typical, cut, worst case cut through a whole fibre, we will fix the next day.
So it sounds as though you're
no worse and if anything better off than BT?
I think we're a lot better off in a way because BT is dealing with dodgy copper. That sort of it doesn't just so much that it breaks; it's erratic in its behaviour. I mean, all of you will have had experience of this. The line is up and down, and you report it, and they think they fixed it, and they don't. Fibre works or it doesn't work, so it's very clear cut. In general, the maintenance of a fibre network is about 1/10 of what it is for a copper network. So that, the overall support is needed is a lot less. We will have a support organisation the same as anybody else does. The main difference is it's not in Mumbai, it's going to be in the Loon Valley. As part of our putting together skill sets, we will identify people in the community who have the skills to provide support, who are interested in doing that. Because we have our own telephony system, what we can actually do is we can have a number that you're like an 0800 number, but there'll be a number that you will ring that will be free for support. And what that will do is we'll have a whole series of systems where people will log in on the web, identify themselves as available to take calls. Obviously, we've pre-vetted these people and worked with them. And the calls will be routed through to people, and whoever picks it up will get paid for that call. So there's a good incentive to actually pick the calls up. So there's lots of ways we can do that, but it can all be done from your home. We have management systems in the network which the support people can log into. They'll be able to examine interfaces across the network, see if there are problems. The kit we're putting into properties is intelligent, so you can actually log into that and see what's going on there. So when people say the network is down, we will have tools that allow you to go all the way to the little box inside the property and say, well, it's up to there. At that point, you start talking to them about the finger trouble. Have you changed anything? Have you put a driver in? All the usual things. Reinstall Windows. What usually first rule of Mumbai support. Restart your computer, reinstall Windows, put Service Pack 6 in. So it's exactly the same. The only real difference is that where we have any holes, where we find we haven't got enough skills, what we'd like to do is then train additional people up. So we'll always be looking to do that, but keeping the jobs local. So we don't see them as full-time jobs, but we see there's a lot of people in the community who have a few hours that they've got available that are willing to take calls and solve problems and get paid to do it. So keep the spend local again. We will be taking full third-party liability insurance out before we start digging. We haven't done it yet because we haven't actually done it. We have no point in having the insurance until you start doing something that you're going to need it. But before we start building, we will have full third-party cover. And any damage we do, we would expect to pick up the bill for. We're on the build-out plan. We originally had a 7-phase rollout, about 1,500 to 2,000 properties a year, and we sort of had sort of a sequencing of them. But I have to say that's not going to stand the test of time. We're going to respond to how funding goes, how demand arises. If we find there's a lot of people in a community who are desperate for broadband and are willing to sort of support a share issue and all the rest of it, then we would accelerate it. So it's as simple as that.
So we could do some canvassing.
Absolutely, yes.
Silver down and drag you in.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is that we're going to have to work 24-hour and 10-minute days for the next few months to sort of do what we're doing. So, give us till Easter, and then after that, we might be able to lift our heads above the parapet. When we sat down and we were looking at the barn project, we were working from the worst to the best. So when we selected our 8 parishes, they were all selected as the ones that are furthest from the exchanges that have got the worst service. It's exactly the opposite to what any commercial company would do. Any commercial company would go in where you're going to make the money. So you go for the conurbations, where you've got the big clusters. Where are we working? Where people are spread out all over the place. They're the basket cases. That's where you don't want to go commercially. By definition, that's avoiding the conurbations because the exchanges tend to be in the built-up areas. So in our area, we've got one exchange in the middle of Hornby and one in the middle of Caton. Those are the only 2 that affect us. So if you look at our phase 1, we skirt round those because we're concentrating on the worst. It does mean that our cost per property in phase 1 is a lot higher than it would be if we did it the other way round. But you know, we think that's important to do it that way around. And when we start expanding, because phase one is just phase one, there are about 15,000 properties in the rural areas around Lancaster, and the intention is that we'll do them all over a period of 5 or 6 years, new share issues each year, and we'll do the next batch. But they'll get a little bit cheaper each time because we've done a lot of the upfront costs on phase one. When you're starting a community project like this up from scratch, you're 2 men and a dog, you're working on a wing and a prayer, you have no money, no resources. There's just no way you can take on board the planning and the funding of something that big. Once we've established phase one and people can see the service, you know, we've got revenue, we've got the structures there, then we will expand and we will respond to where demand is. And if there's a lot of demand in an urban bit, we'll go there. Our model of building a network is orientated to rural because it's all about going across farmlands and things. Once you start moving into the urban bits, then we have to start using the same techniques as BT and the others would do because you're going to have to go down roads and things like that. But having said that, the cost per property in an urban area for cable TV or fibre tends to be about £350, £400 per property. As opposed to about £1,500 plus the way we're doing things in the rural bits. So I mean, you know, it actually would be quite cheap for us to do the urban bit, but it's just not our priority. Our priority is community and rural communities. We are offering VoIP services from day one. We will have 2 telephone exchanges up as a resilient pair in 2 different locations, either of which will give you full service. They will handle the things like they produce billing files and all the rest of it. And what we will need to do is pull that data and bill people. The way our model for telephony is that we don't charge a monthly fee. So your £30 covers you for your broadband and your telephony. All you'll get charged for is calls. We believe that the majority of people these days tend to use their mobile phones rather than their landlines, and I think it's more of a backup service. So they want to keep their existing landline phone numbers. That's fine, it can be moved across to our system, and they'll get an odd incoming call, but people don't make a lot of calls out on those. They tend to use their mobiles more. But yep, you know, it's there, and there are packages available from a number of VoIP service providers that will give you, similar to BT, you know, any time, any day, any calls you like, $5.99, Vonage, there's any number of companies like that. And we will try and put into place some relationships like that. Whichever way it works, your calls will be cheaper than they would be from BT, and there will be a series of packages. What Barn wants to concentrate on is the bit that we think we ought to be concentrating on, which is getting that fibre into properties. That's where the community, that's it, that's our strong suit. Get the fibre in, get you a really fast pipe to the internet, really reliable, good service. What you then do is there's 101 services you want, and of course you just have icons on your PC, you click on them, you buy your email, you know, whatever you want to do. They are services within the cloud of the internet, and I don't think really that Barn's necessarily the right organisation to do that. We need to get the fibre bit up. But there are lots of things out there where we can do relationships, partnerships with all sorts of organisations. Ideally, we'll get a little bit of money from them, you know, small micro bit of funding, which will help us offset our costs. But we don't see Barn expanding to be a full feature, you know, big conglomerate that has 101 different services. That probably isn't the role of the community. Let's stick to the fundamental bits of getting the fibre up and running. Basically, there are a number of initiatives around the country. There are groups who are looking at doing broadband all over the place. Most of them, I think we're about the only exception, have taken the view that they're going to wait on government money and they think that, you know, BDUK's money is going to solve their problems. We've taken the view that there isn't enough money there, that the best way of doing it is to see how far we can go with funding from within the community. But that doesn't mean we're not going to ask for funding that there is. So there's the BDUK money. We would like to be able to access that. Whether we can or not, I don't know. I think the way Lancashire County Council did their procurement locked us out, so we couldn't actually bid to get any of that. DEFRA have just released something called the Rural Community Broadband Fund, which has got about 20 million. And we will certainly be applying for funding out of that, which could be worth up to £300 a property. So yes, I mean, the bottom line is we're going to raise what we can with shares and community effort. and we will look at every other sources of funding that is around there to see what we can do. The nice thing about the community doing it is we get this total independence from state serfdom. And any of you who've been involved in public sector procurements and things know that it costs you 3 or 4 times as much the minute you have to comply with all the regulations. And, you know, it could be a bit of a poison chalice. Yes, you get the grants, but we may have to go through so many hoops and spend so much time and money complying that we actually end up worse off than doing it ourselves. But we'll keep a watching brief on that. And I think there are also possibilities that if we had some shortfalls, I suspect we might be able to raise some soft loans from different organisations and members of the community. So, you know, there's lots of sources. There's the shares, there's labour, there's subscriptions that people will do. If a lot of people sign up, we can turn subscriptions into capital. There's lots of games we can play like that. We're not bankers, so we're not going to go like the city. But I think, you know, if the sign up is there from the community, I think where there's a will, there's a way. We could either borrow money as a loan or we could issue bonds. I mean, there are any number of ways we could actually do it. The one advantage of shares over loans or bonds is that loans or bonds usually have some sort of, you know, agreed payback period, which is contractually binding. So, you know, if you're borrowing money with terms, you have to pay it back and meet those terms. Shares is basically an act of faith. You're investing in a company. Yes, you should be able to get your money out, but you're taking a risk along with the company. So, you know, loans would have preference over the assets of shareholders. So, you know, if we can get people to invest in shares, it's better. But yes, I have no doubt at all that there will be members of the community who would be willing to help us with loans, or we could raise bonds, issue bonds. I mean, John Lewis Partnership did that recently, didn't they? They've been issuing a lot of bonds to members. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at what you get for money in the bank at the moment, it's hardly worth keeping it in the bank and sort of getting the 30% EIS. If you're a higher rate taxpayer, it's worth something close to 16% per annum gross for the first 3 years, and then 5% per annum thereafter. Those are pretty good rates of returns. They're commercial. We think there are 3 reasons why people might buy shares. I mean, they might buy it because they want broadband. But, you know, very reasonable. They might buy it because they want to support the community, because even if they don't particularly need the broadband, they see the importance of it for keeping the communities vibrant and alive. And there will be some people out there who actually will just do it because we believe there's a good commercial case to be made for it. You know, we're not asking you to give us the money and give you nothing back. As long as we deliver on what we think we can deliver, which is as per our business plan, there isn't really that much risk. We don't think so. You'll get your money back and you get a good rate of interest. So, you know, compared to what 0.1% you get with most of the banks or something, leaving it on deposit. That would be a special case, and we certainly, as far as our rules are concerned, you'd be all right. What I'm not sure about is what would happen if you bought the shares, claimed investment enterprise scheme tax relief, and then died, whether the taxman would sort of try and claw back the 30% tax relief. It's something that we haven't really asked the question. Does the taxman take on board the fact people die and is happy with that? or do they treat you dying as a grave inconvenience to the taxman and take umbrage with you? I honestly don't know. I'm sorry, it's one we need to look into. But from our rules, yes, no problem. We recognise that people, that sort of thing does happen. Yeah, it would. So if you were 20,000, you know, we would have to arrange with you to pay you in cash rather than in shares, because you would hit the limit. Yeah. Yeah, it's an Industrial Provident Society Act, and unless the government changes the rules, you know, I have whinged and moaned about it, but I don't think I actually carry much weight of central government. Absolutely right. You may choose to invest multiples of 1,500 because you've got family members, but we'd like to think that this is a community project and it is about helping other members of your community. There will be people in our communities who may not be able to afford their broadband. It would be really nice if the better off amongst the community who are willing to invest would could nominate people, or perhaps leave it to the barn management people to identify people who need a bit of a helping hand. So yes, that would be great. You know, we'd love to see that happen. Right up to the 20,000 limit. So you know, just write a cheque as you go. You can nominate the properties later.
Could have been a hypothetical question.
Oh right, okay. They always are, aren't they? All right, thank you very much, everybody. Right, the coffee's outside apparently. We're all going to be here for the next few hours, and anybody that wants to ask anything, do by all means.